Hello, everybody. This is a new case. It's a landlord-tenant matter in the Indiana Lawyer this week, and it's dealing with an eviction and what got overturned by the Court of Appeals compared to what was happening in the trial court. So it went to the trial court, and in Center Township, Marion County, everybody knows that if you're in Indianapolis, but it's Marion County, Center Township. They had a hearing. It was an emergency hearing. So the landlord had sued the tenant who was basically living in a room with the landlord's son. So the landlord owns the property, rented it to her son, and then this other party moved into one of the rooms as kind of a subtenant, but she did not have a lease. She's just living there. She brought her dog, her pit bull, and her cats, right? And the landlord said, look, this is an emergency because the dog and the cats are not on the lease. This lady's not on the lease. The dog is barking and growling at me and my grandkids. It's dangerous. It's stinky, blah, blah, blah. The tenant said, no, it's not. It's not a pit bull at all. It's another type of bulldog, and it's very friendly. It's not dangerous. It's not threatening anybody, and I clean up after them very nicely. Okay, and so there's really not a problem. Well, the court agreed with her and then said, but I'm still going to throw you out. The court said, I agree. This is not rising to the level of an emergency where the landlord can have you removed, evicted, and give possession back to the landlord because it's not that dangerous. It's not that big of an emergency that doesn't require it. So I'm going to go ahead, though, and say you did have notice of this hearing, and I'm still going to evict you. And her lawyer, who was representing her at the time, said, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't a lawyer. But she says, look, I didn't know that this was going to be a hearing on something other than the emergency. I want time to prepare my defense for that. And the judge says, no, you've had plenty of notice of today's hearing, and you've had time to prepare, and you don't even have a lease. So the judge kind of rolled it all into one and said, you're done. Well, the Court of Appeals didn't like that and said, hey, Your Honor, you need to give them an opportunity, a defendant, an opportunity to prepare a defense because this is a whole separate issue. It's a second thing, not an emergency basis. And so the complaint, the notice of claim said, you're here for emergency only. It didn't say emergency and you don't have a lease. So here's the key takeaway. Number one, when you file your notice of claim, you need to include all your possible claims against somebody. And you maybe don't think you're going to need all that, but you want to kind of throw in the kitchen sink to make sure that you're being heard on all the issues. Now, I got to say that the judge might have said, we're only here on the emergency part, and we're going to defer these other things if you had pled it that way. Okay? Who knows what would have happened? But the bottom line is that every litigant in a case, if you're a defendant, you have to have notice of what the case is about, all the claims against you, and you have to have opportunity to prepare, opportunity to hire counsel, and opportunity to present your defenses and your evidence and witnesses. Okay? So it was improper to just assume that the plaintiff was correct and there was no lease. Maybe there was one. Maybe there was some kind of agreement. Maybe there's some documentation that would show that she did have an ongoing right to live there. At the very least, the defendant was arguing, I've got a month-to-month lease. You got to at least give me 30 days notice. Well, that's the law. Well, that didn't happen. The court kind of stubbed their toes on it, and the Court of Appeals corrected that. So this tenant then gets another bite at the apple to defend on the issue of whether or not she has a valid lease, yes or no, and present normal defenses in that regard. So I did want to bring that to your attention and go from there. And I hope you don't run into that trouble for yourself. If you have questions about evictions, be sure to give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out. Have a great day.